People say that virtual reality failed. But what if VR didn't fail? What if we really just tried to use it before we understood it? So let's talk about virtual reality, where it is now, where it's headed, and why so many people gave up on it way too soon. The current state of VR is an interesting place. We have so many things, ranging from headsets that are like the Quest 2, the Quest 3, where they have mixed reality, wireless, and virtual reality performance. And then we also have things like the big screen beyond. You're tethered to a computer. There's no like outside cameras that you can look into the real world, and you're kind of stuck just in a virtual space. And then we have new competition, the Steam Frame. The Steam Frame coming out in early 2026, where they finally moved the battery to the back of the head. You think that'd be normal, but it's really odd how it took them a while for any company to do that. When it comes to the current state of virtual reality, VR right now feels like how the internet was in the 90s. It's so powerful, but it's well misunderstood, especially by the common public. There are many headsets as of now that have made fast improvements throughout the years, with one example being the Big Screen Beyond 2, where it's a goggle-like headset. It's just so small. In the current realm, the push for mixed reality and virtual reality has increased the amount of innovation and improvements that have been in the industry, spanning from things like spatial audio to eye tracking, where you can, wherever you're moving in real life, like your eyes, it'll track in game. And then we have other things like haptics as well, where you can feel any sensation, whether it be pain or heat or anything in that sense. In recent years especially, immersion has increased tenfolds, with resolutions going up to 4K with the haptic vests that I was talking about earlier. Us being less than like 70 to 90 degrees off of human field of view, which is insane. Like you can see like this far in VR. It's crazy. And that's not that far off from reality. And then especially the increased like reduction in latency, especially with what we've seen with the technology they're putting in the Steam Frame, that latency is going to be very low for wireless application, which helps decrease motion sickness in anyone playing VR, I would say. I would say that VR as of now, which it always is closer to matching how we naturally see and move in real life in a virtual space. And that'll forever increase exponentially, especially with what we've seen in the past couple years. So on paper, VR looks the best that it's ever had. But if that's really true, then why does so much of society feel like it's failed as of now? In the current state, and even more in the past state of VR, there have been many hurdles that companies have had to cross. Going from the cost of the headsets, with them in the past being over $1,000, which now, of course, they're better. And making high quality content is very expensive, especially since it's such an early process. Where gaming in the past, we can start with gaming for now. There wasn't really like, they could start low quality because in the past there wasn't that need for graphics, or there weren't any graphics that really could have been there as like in 2000 compared to 2020. But now, since people are so used to high quality graphics, these games have to be really high quality for virtual reality, even though the industry only just started. It's like the first 10 years of gaming, you're comparing it to the first 10 years of virtual reality. And they're very similar, but people like to put virtual reality in an entirely different ballpark, even though it's only such early development. There's also the weight of the headsets. The weight of the headsets have gotten better in time, especially with what you've seen with the Big Screen Beyond. Most headsets are still very heavy, going from 400 to 600 grams, depending on what you want your headset to do, of course. With content being a large issue in the adoption of virtual reality within society, as making high quality content is of course expensive, there's also not many consumers yet for all this content. Although there have been a lot of people getting virtual reality headsets, the issue is a lot of those people are not looking for paid games or paid experiences, especially with them being younger. I would say that most of society is currently very hopeful for VR, but they're very cautious at the same time. There's a lot of negative media portrayal in the recent years, as well as negative first-hand experience for some users, with there being caution on addiction, privacy, side effects, and strain on like mental and physical states. There are many users who buy a headset and just jump and straight into VR without knowing really how to go into it correctly, where one must take time to adjust to the VR scene to lessen the chances of motion sickness. They need to take time slowly to understand that your body is moving, but your brain like isn't, and it just the motion sickness. You just need time to understand that. And most users currently do not take care of this, and it worsens their experience for themselves, causing them to have that bad first-hand experience, returning the headset, and just giving a negative review, even though they didn't correctly go into the process of implementing themselves in virtual reality. Overall, VR faces many struggles within the public view. As I've seen firsthand with many critics and skeptics, I've actually written a research paper for a class on the negative portrayal and framing that media has on virtual reality, and it's very interesting on how they push negativity towards these types of products. But public opinion only tells part of the story. What really matters is how it affects those who use it, how VR affects its users. First of all, virtual reality is a product that can create high depth immersion into different places or scenarios. Like I could be on the moon for a second and then jump to Mars. And this can lead to a plethora of effects, both positive and negative, of course. And it can also improve empathy and perspective, where virtual reality allows you to be inside the shoes of another person entirely. You can be basically where their eyes are and see what they're seeing, experience anything that they're experiencing. And it can show you different types of lives, creating experiences that someone would not have had originally without the usage of virtual reality. I could travel to anywhere in the world and walk around, and that is an amazing experience because it opens horizons for myself where I don't have to spend thousands of dollars to maybe implement myself into another culture or anything in that extent. Now, we do have to talk about the negative effects. There are some effects where there could be psychological issues, such as potential addiction or escapism, where escapism is where people will basically escape the real world and stick themselves in virtual reality and kind of stay there. And this causes them to avoid real life problems and situations, and then also lead to isolation and neglection of responsibilities. And these are very negative effects, but there are plenty of ways to avoid this. And it's mostly up to the user, which is sad to say, but that's the same with any type of product. Using a Zyn is addictive, but people like to do it to get the stress out of their mind. People use virtual reality to escape the world, which is sad, but some people like it. And it's kind of the same as some people drinking wine. Negative effects will always be there for any product. And when you look at both sides, positive and negative, it becomes clear that VR isn't itself the problem. What we're really seeing is how people are introduced to it, how they use it, and what they expect from it. There's high expectations set into these products, especially when it comes to the prices of them, with a lot of expectations also being nonfiction and sci-fi based, such as seeing Ready Player One VR systems. Those are crazy expensive and crazy just awesome. And then you compare those to what's available to consumers, especially the common consumer, and it's kind of saddening for what they have compared to we have. And VR is always advertised in a way that it can replace the real world, but it was never meant to. It was never meant to replace the real world. It was only meant to implement yourself into it for a while, get an experience, and move on. Maybe get another experience. It's the same as like going to Disney World. You go there for a tiny bit, but then you're out. VR is also a very young ecosystem of products with, although there have been like very minor like innovational products in like the 1980s and 90s, it only started becoming part of consumer bases in the 2010s, where we have the Oculus DV1, the development kit, and then we have the Oculus Rift, which is the first one. There's also a limited amount of apps, similar to how apps were in the early day of touchscreen phones. There were like some apps on like the first phone or two phones, like iPhone, but there wasn't really as much. There were small games, but not really anything built out until 10 years later. Remember, innovation, iteration, and adaptation takes time. Everything takes time. We don't call touchscreen phones failures of products. They're called early to the party, with phones improving to figure out difficult pieces and fixing issues. When people say that VR is failing, they're really seeing a technology that's still finding its place in this world. It's forever innovating and forever fixing issues, bringing on more applications and such, not to be left behind. Once you understand that, the future of VR makes a lot more sense. When it comes to the next few years of VR, hardware is starting to become less of a barrier, in a sense. As headsets become lighter, lens clarity improves, wireless becomes a standard, and overall comfort enhances, allowing more people to enter into this industry. In times, VR could turn into something like a phone or a console, becoming a part of one's daily routine for a lot of people. VR doesn't need to replace reality, but it for sure can have a major role in it. Over years, content will mature, creating more polished and finished experiences and apps with purpose within each of them, going from work-based apps to pure entertainment to maybe a lesson. Social VR will also feel a lot more natural than it currently does, allowing more meaningful connection between people from all over the world. VR isn't powerful because of what you can see within it, but more of who you can connect and experience things with. So when people say VR failed, they're not completely wrong. I would say they're just early to the party. If you've watched to the end, I wanted to say thank you. I've been a part of the VR community for about 8 years, and I've always wanted to make videos about virtual reality. This video is my start to that, and I'm very happy I did. I plan on making more content about VR because it's a big passion of mine, so if you like this video, please subscribe. Also, I'll have more videos coming out, spanning from philosophy towards VR and more. Thank you all again.